I'm here with George Lovato Jr., David Wolf with Just Ask George.
I'm here with David Wolf. Good to be back after a little bit of a hiatus.
Yeah, we took a couple of years off to, grow some hair. So, George, we're going to kick off this next series with...
something new and exciting.
New and exciting. We're going to be more into a kind of an exchange about business overall.
Yeah, the old format's gone and the new format is in. And for you loyal audience members and listeners, we have several things that we're going to be doing different. One is to showcase Dave's talents with his company, and this is a very technical 4-camera shoot with a green screen in the back, no less. But more in terms of content, Dave's going to be more involved rather than me pontificating ad nauseum in some cases.
No, I think, listen, to the extent I like nauseum, it was wonderful. No, look, we're always learning a lot from George because he knows so much about so many different kinds of businesses. I happen to be in one of those businesses, and I've actually gone through a pivot since we've been shooting these shows.
Going back to your roots a little bit.
Yeah, and, absolutely going back to my roots.
This is what's interesting about this audience is that Dave has always had this capacity to create both visually and harmonically.
Ooh, I love when he speaks technically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I come from the music production space, so it's natural for me to be doing production and the audio side,
Absolutely.
the podcasting side, the video side. So I am now a content creator, as you would say. So we're looking forward to this show. We're going to talk a little bit about the starting point on businesses.
We'll talk about business and what it is in the modern age, but moreover, we're going to take this content for you audience members and we're going to compile it into a series of downloads for you for your convenience, as well as Dave and I are collaborating on a book together, which includes the content in the shows. And of course, Dave has a book coming out on his own, and then we have a book together.
Right.
And then I have a book coming up very soon called Higher Power Business, which according to the publisher, they say it's going to be very controversial, which means it'll sell a lot of books. You guys will buy a lot of them. So
I love it. All right, we'll be right back, and we'll get rolling into Just Ask George number 2.
Just Ask George Jag.
He said.
All right.
All right, we'll see
Bye.
you then.
Podcastandradio.com offers turnkey content production solutions for your business enterprise, including audio podcasts, internet radio stations, and video production. For more than 25 years, media producer David Wolf has served clients worldwide, such as Southwest Airlines, McDonald's, Long John Silver's, Disney, Chuck E. Cheese Enterprises, Fast Signs, Pepsi, Frito-Lay, and many, many more. Today, podcastandradio.com serves companies of any size across a broad range of industries with content marketing they need to keep their website, email marketing, and social media channels current and engaging with fresh content. For more information, visit podcastandradio.com. George Lovato's first and very popular book, The Obstacle Course, can be purchased online at Amazon.com. The Obstacle Course chronicles the success story of George Lovato Jr.'s climb to national notoriety as he built one of America's largest car rental companies, and features his harrowing story as he grabbed the brass ring by successfully taking this enterprise public in the salad days of NASDAQ. Many of the teachings in this book are still relevant today in the modern business age. The Obstacle Course is available on Amazon.com.
Welcome back, George.
We're here. Today, we're going to talk about business in the modern age. And more importantly, we're going to talk about some of the things that have really changed even in the past decade. Technology, even how in the small businesses now, the home run business or the telecommute business, if you want to call it that, the micro business, as you've often called it.
The gig economy, some call it.
Yeah, exactly. I love that one. And with that in mind, some of the things that Dave is experiencing now in his new enterprise, and some of the things that I've seen my clients experience over time. So let's start first with sort of what'd you go through in setting this new enterprise up? What was fun about it?
Okay, so the fun, you want to start with the good stuff.
Let's start with the good stuff.
So the good stuff is I feel like I feel like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. And this really...
Where's your dog?
Well, we're not in Toto anymore. We're in Albuquerque. We're not in Kansas anymore. Toto, we're in Albuquerque. George. You know, I went on what I now call, over a 15-year period, George, a series of what I like to call pointless perpetual pivots. So the happy ending that you're asking me for was the culmination of explorations into business adventures and ventures and misadventures that I was curious about, but probably wasn't born to be in.
And I'll say this much about that, as the ever famous Hubert Humphrey would say.
Yes.
David has a talent, as I said in the intro, in the way of creating, and it put him right back to where he came from. It stems from his experience as a musician and a songwriter, and now very much involved in not only music editing, music creation, but now video editing and production in a much broader scale. But I think what the lesson is there to be learned is that you are in a business that, for the most part, is your comfort zone. So a lot of times we see people that get involved in businesses and they just aren't comfortable doing it. You can spot it a mile away. They force themselves into an environment where they aren't accountable to themselves, and they aren't accountable to anybody else. There's really no supervision in small business other than ourselves. And so you came back to your center. And so you're comfortable in it, you're doing it, and now you've got a very nice and very robust client base, because I think that energy transfers. And I think there's a big lesson. You're absolutely
right.
There.
It's the energy, the passion. You can't be accountable to yourself if you don't know why you're doing it. If you're only doing it to chase a deal or chase a dollar or chase transactions, or for a variety of reasons that aren't core to your being and what your soul needs, in my case, to be creative on some level or to produce content on some level, which I started when I was probably 6 years old, bringing a reel-to-reel tape recorder. I have a photo. In fact, I should insert it here. A photo of me looking at a microphone with wonderment at my uncle's wedding when I was 5. I mean, if you don't have that core
passion,
you have a very interesting vantage point, not only on me and my sort of journey, but because you've dealt with so many entrepreneurs, and we've covered a lot of this over the course of the series here. You've observed the behavioral biases and habits and lack of accountability and nuances of emotional content across so many different kinds of people and so many types of businesses that you have a bird's eye view of what I went through. And we want to unpack a lot of that while we're on the series here.
And one of the things that I've noticed is that you're always a quick study at whatever you do, but when you're in your sweet spot, there is sort of a natural emanation of all that energy. And so that works. But one of the things that's really changed, and I think you're part of that movement, is how marketing has changed in marketing your product and service, what you do as Dave Wolf today, where 10 years ago, you wouldn't be marketing yourself the way you're marketing now on the web. You are pushing out there. You're pushing the envelope in terms of the technology. You're branding yourself in a very bold way. And with that in mind, that's one thing that you have to learn in business today, is that marketing is 1,000% different than it was even 5 years ago. And so with that in mind, you have to learn new techniques constantly, stay current.
Yes.
And that's in any business. That's not only about marketing, but that is about everything that is involved in the business. You must stay current. There must be fluency in what you're doing and how you're doing it. And I think you're doing that right now.
No question. I'm a student of marketing, and it's a perpetual, ongoing journey. It is not going to be a destination. In fact, someone famous said that the more you learn, the more that you know or you learn about subject matter, exponentially you discover what you don't know. And that can become very frustrating because there's no real end game in this moving velocity of how marketing is changing.
It's my new terminology, fluency. And when you're fluent in the business of your business, then things come easier, such as how you market yourself, such as how you manage your finances, such as how you price your product or your service in a competitive marketplace, and how fluent you are on your competition.
George Lovato Jr. authors books that are tailor-made for today's business environment. If you're an entrepreneur, business owner, or you run a business enterprise, you don't want to miss the books he's authored over the past 4 years, including The Obstacle Course, The Best Damn Guide to Business Finance, and George's groundbreaking ebook, How to Finance Your Business. His latest book, Higher Power Business, is a departure from his previous works and proves to be a very controversial source of discussion among its reviewers and preview readers. Higher Power Business makes the case that corporate America is conflicted and in many cases hypocritical about recognizing God in business matters. In it, Lovato states that God is already in our business 365 days a year, and that he surrounds us 360 degrees by 360 degrees spherically. Scheduled for fourth quarter release 2017, this book is touted by many critics to be a very controversial bestseller. Put in your early order for Higher Power Business today at bhcapitalltd.com. BH Capital Limited is celebrating over 30 years of providing proactive finance and management solutions for American enterprise. Under the leadership of George Lovato Jr., the firm exists as an expert in the complex world of structured finance, modern management strategies and techniques, and breaking the code of marketing in the modern digital age. Through its ability to lend or invest singularly or in conjunction with other institutions or investors, American enterprise has been able to resolve many of the complex issues surrounding corporate finance as a result of BH Capital's participation. Having assisted and advised many top American corporate executives, BH Capital Limited is a driving force in American management consulting and advisory engagements. Find out more by visiting bhcapitalltd.com.
So we've talked a little bit about being in your sweet spot. We've talked a little bit about marketing in the modern age. We've talked about fluency, being fluent in what you're doing and how you do it.
Yes.
And I think that then let's talk a little bit about accountability.
Oh, yeah. It's so huge.
So with we Catholics, we call it guilt. So I'm going to make you feel guilty.
Well, I'm a member of that club. I mean, in the Jewish faith or lack of faith or whatever it is,
you guys get rid of your guilt once a year. We do it every week.
On Hanukkah, it's guilt. Now it's guilt. All right. But anyway, we digress.
So the idea is, how do you maintain accountability? It's you by yourself. How do you maintain accountability in a micro environment?
Well, in a micro business, it can be lonely at that level because it's oftentimes it's only you interacting with a scope of clients.
Sure.
I have a whiteboard in my office now with my current clients.
Oh, I got you hooked on the whiteboard.
I love the whiteboard thing, and I love the markers. And to the right of that, I have the prospects. So it's very, very simple.
Good.
But part of, and you've observed this in me, and I think it's true for all of us in business, when you have the passion and you really care and are in your zone about your comfort zone, as you called it earlier, the accountability, I think it's like the law of gravity. It almost comes naturally because you really, really do care about these clients and what their relationship is to you and what you're doing to them to serve them.
I'm doing a little more advisory work now, and not that finance is any less an emphasis in the business. It's always going to be with me for as long as I know I'm going to be around.
Oh, yeah.
And the advisory work with some of the professionals that I deal with deals with keeping them centered, one, in their sweet spot. Two, it deals with something else, getting them to the point where they're not worrying about things that haven't happened. And I'm real big on that.
Yes, you are.
Why are you upset? Why are you anxious? Why are you nervous? It hasn't happened yet. You're worrying about something that's way down the calendar, and we don't even know that we're going to get to that point.
Yeah, well, it reminds me of Apollo 13. They had all these steps. They had to rewrite the rule book or the playbook to get back to Earth, but they really were only dealing with, there was a line, I think Tom Hanks said it, you're on step number 437, and this is step 10.
Yeah.
What do you, and he was bouncing off we're not going to be bouncing off the walls over this, whatever it was, blaming each other.
So we talked a little bit about that spooky time when you're alone and you're in your business by yourself.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're worried about something or something overtakes you and it gets a little scary.
Right.
What do you do when that anxiety comes over you now?
Well, I've been working on the anxiety, and what I didn't understand when we were working together and I was an affiliate with BH, or in my pursuit of things that weren't native to me, that period. What I didn't realize.
That's a good phrase, by the way. Pursuit of things that weren't native to me. I like that.
Yeah, it wasn't native to my personality and my soul. I'm a creative guy. I got back home I clicked my heels 3 times. So when I wasn't home, what I didn't understand and underestimated to a great extent was the amount of stress that I was carrying. So this really points to what you asked me, what do you do when you have anxiety and you're worried about stuff? So, I'm now a practicer of I now practice meditation, which has only in a few months been a mind blower, to be honest with you, because it's 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening where I just take time to get my mind. It's a technique to get still, to get to a place where your mind is still. So that technique alone, and it's a technique, it's not the course of business, which I think maybe what you were asking, but it's a technique to quiet the mind, which I'm finding influences the way I behave throughout the rest of my day.
The way you conduct the business, the way you manage the business.
Exactly.
And, in my first book, The Obstacle Course, I talked about a little bit about projection, a little bit about that process of being able to see the day, taking it on a day-by-day basis.
Yeah.
We're on step 10, not step 493.
Yeah.
We're on step 10. And so what I encourage all of my clients to do is to stop, think before the day begins, before they brush their teeth in the morning.
Exactly.
Take that 5 minutes. Think about the priorities that are in your mind, the things that need to be done. See it in your mind as a movie in color. And then during the day, try and execute just like you saw it in your mind that morning.
Yes.
And, that's an old technique that was used in sports.
Your football coach did that for you, didn't he?
Absolutely. And my ski coach did it to me, and I learned it. And then I slowly transferred it when I was very young in my 20s into business. And I find it to be very, very effective. When I get people to project and you're doing meditation, you're actually doing the same thing. You're extending a little bit further because you're centered towards that stillness. And that's important because then you're able to dam up your energy, your positive energy, and then you're able to let it leak out throughout the day. And as it leaks out, it's contagious. People get it. And I talked to,
no question.
I've had hundreds of salesmen work for me over the years. And I've trained hundreds of, I've owned car dealerships and I've owned publishing enterprises and all kinds of, but we had to have good salesmen. So training salesmen is very easy. What you have to do, and you have to remember, because what do you do every single day in your business is you're selling your product.
Absolutely.
When you sell your product, one, fluency. What is the product? How much can I know about it? And you can never know enough. Okay.
Right.
But over and above that, it is enthusiasm. It's that positivity. It's that positive energy that you dammed up, that you're letting leak out, and you make it contagious. That essentially bleeds over to your prospects. Your prospects say, hey, I want a little more of that.
I want some of that good energy because it's going to help me in my business.
It works.
It's funny. I have found that some of what's attracting my new business to me is my energy. It's almost like this ignition, this energy flow that people are, they just want me around them. Even if I'm not producing a podcast, no, I'm kidding. But they're
your popular cocktail hours currently.
Exactly. There is a sense of that. Yeah. There's a sense of that, and it's not something I try to do. That's the other thing that I've learned.
But I think that has to do with that damming up of that positive energy, centering it, bringing it in, and then letting it come out, leak out over time.
Yeah.
And since you're selling, you understand that. You understand that you've got a product and you've got to sell it. You're the only one that's going to do it.
Yep.
And the same thing goes in my business.
Right.
Yes, I have affiliates all over the world, but when it comes down to it, when it comes down to the prospect, I'm the one that usually gets on the phone, talks to them, gives them that sense of comfort, and gives them that sense of energy as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes we take on a turnaround, and those are very challenging. We only do about one, maybe at most 2 a year. But they're very challenging because they are just festooned with negative energy, okay? And you find that they have dragged along all this anxiety, and it's been dammed up. Just like your positive energy, it's been dammed up.
Yeah.
And now what you have to do is you have to go in there and you have to find a way to give that client confidence that these solutions will in fact work out. Okay?
That's so powerful. So much of this is about what is your frame of mind? What is your emotional platform from which you are operating? If you don't have that in place, and you just really alluded to it very clearly, nothing, anything else that follows it is not going to have what it needs to move your business along and, frankly, your whole life.
Well, and then you look at you look at client quality and client confidence.
I love client
and
quality.
Then managing their expectations. When you're dealing with a turnaround, which is a very difficult situation for me because it's emotionally draining, you have to constantly reinforce. What was I always doing with you back in the day? I was reinforcing, Dave, you can do this, Dave, this can happen. Dave, approach it this way. And you would, and then things would happen. You would develop clients. Things would happen positively to you. But it took a while for that trust to connect.
It's
and
essential.
then confidence, and then fluency. So we're back to that again. So with the more that you know about your situation, and in terms of a turnaround, in terms of a startup, the more you know about that situation, the more fluent you are about the environment and what it takes to be successful, guess what? Then the more confident you are, and then that transfers to the client.
It totally transfers. It's so true. So in terms of accountability, I think it's like the law of gravity. If you love what you're doing, you're passionate about it, you're enjoying yourself, I want to wake up and know where, what I do is I rotate through my Rolodex of current clients, and I just want to touch them all. Hey, how are we doing on this? Did you need that proposal? Do you need this piece of video? I'm almost done on the release for this. We're going to put this on LinkedIn. We're going to put this on Facebook. Whatever wherever they are in their content generation and release cycle, I just want to touch them all, and I want to do it. It's not like accountability. It's just, this is what I do.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of a thing.
Two things that we can take away from this particular show, which is important, is one is you're not new to startup.
No, this is a re-startup.
Yeah, you've been involved in several startups, both on your own account as well with other people, other clients. You've helped other individuals. In fact, you're involved right now with one of your clients that's in the southeastern part of the United States that is really turning this podcast that you're producing for them into its own entity, its own enterprise. It actually has its own legs. For them.
Sometimes the podcast and content generation itself is a platform and a business. It's not just a means to the end, but it actually is the end. And often I have clients ask me, well, how do I directly monetize podcasts? It's less of the time that's the case, but sometimes it is.
And you've got to know what you got to know. You got to know what your sweet spot is in your saddle when you're involved in any startup. So part of the decision-making process for you to come back to this space was, hey, I'm going back to my sweet spot. And probably part of the decision for this client making this podcast a new business is it felt good. The gut said, hey, this is okay. This can be not only a marketing tool, but it can be a business. I can monetize it in some way. And you obviously knew this could be a business because you've been here, at least half of it, the audio part of it before.
Yes, the
Mr.
video
Jingle
came later.
Jangle.
Yeah, the jingles started it. But yeah, the idea of media moving through time has always been really attractive to me. And it's a zone, even though I'm still learning about the camera and the visual and the editorial process in video, it was an easy transference of skills. Sometimes we say.
The other thing I think that's important for, just as George 2.0, as we'll call it, is that we always want our audience to come away with the lesson of the day or the lesson of the show.
You sometimes call these the takeaways.
The takeaways. And I think one of the important takeaways from today's show is that sometimes the best place for you to go in business is right back to your roots. It is. Don't think that you're doing the rewind button because you went back to something that was once successful that you had moved away from. Okay?
Absolutely, it's not the rewind. It's the next logical evolution. And look, I like to say it this way, George. I was authentically curious about a few other things: capital formation, transactional businesses. I had invested in real estate, so I felt like, well, maybe I could be a real estate broker. I now fondly call this, have I talked about perpetual pointless pivots?
Yes.
So I love that. So now it's not rewind at all. I needed to go through and get that quote out of my system, right?
Well, you had to pull new information in.
I know more about business.
In order to compare that information, those challenges in those particular businesses, to test your sweet spot. That's what you're back to.
Maybe I just needed a test. So we're going to be testing a lot of sweet spots in this series.
Absolutely.
I'm really excited about 2.0. Join us next time. George, any final words from you?
Just happy to be back with my buddy and pal again on the air.
Good stuff.
And we've been gone a while, so all I've got to say is welcome back, audience, and we're happy to keep producing these shows and watch for our books and all of our content that we'll be putting up on the shelf for you out there in Webland. So thanks for watching, and thanks for coming back.
We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.